situations. If you are listening to this, it means I am finally ready to say it out loud. For exactly 365 days, situations, I have lived with a secret that almost buried me. You saw the Instagram posts, you saw the family outings, the recipes, the smiles, situations. You thought you were watching a happy life. You were actually watching a cover up. What you didn't see was the neck brace I took off before every photo. Situations, you didn't see the flashing blue lights reflecting off shattered glass in the rain. Situations, you didn't hear the sound of my children screaming in the backseat of a crushed car while I sat there unable to turn my head, praying that this wasn't the end. Situations, they told us we were lucky to be alive. But looking at the wreckage, luck had nothing to do with it. Why did we hide it? Situations, why did I pretend everything was perfect while I was in agony? Because in my world, vulnerability is dangerous. But I am done pretending. I'm Jill Dillard. And for the next hour, I am going to take you inside the ambulance, inside the hospital room, and inside the fear that changed our family forever. No more filters. No more keeping sweet. This is the story of the crash and the miracle that followed. This is the truth. To understand why the crash broke me, situations, you have to understand the morning before it happened. That Tuesday started so dangerously normal. That's the thing about tragedy that nobody tells you. Situations, there is no ominous music playing in the background. The sky doesn't turn black. It just looks like a Tuesday. I remember waking up before the alarm. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet you only get for 5 minutes before three boys wake up and turn the world into a playground. I made coffee, situations. I remember standing in the kitchen, looking out the window at the gray clouds gathering over the trees. It had been raining on and off all week. But that morning, the air felt heavy, humid, sticky. Derick came into the kitchen looking for his keys. He was stressed about work, situation, checking his emails on his phone while trying to pour a bowl of cereal. We were rushing. We are always rushing, it seems. Situations. I remember feeling annoyed because we were 10 minutes behind schedule. Isn't that funny? I was worried about being 10 minutes late. When in reality, we were rushing towards something that would stop our clock entirely. I got the boys dressed. Frederick was fighting me on his socks. He wanted the blue ones. Situations, not the white ones. Samuel couldn't find his favorite dinosaur toy. Israel was asking 100 questions about where we were going. It was chaotic. It was loud. Situations. It was beautiful. I distinctively remember strapping Frederick into his car seat. Situations. I pulled the strap tight, maybe a little tighter than usual without even thinking about it. I kissed his forehead. He smelled like baby shampoo and milk. Situations, I closed the heavy car door with a thud. That sound, that heavy metallic thud of the door closing, I hear it in my nightmares now because once that door closed, situations, we were sealed in. We were in the bubble. We pulled out of the driveway at 9:15 a.m. I looked back at the house as we drove away. Situations, I didn't know that the next time I would see that house, I would be in a wheelchair, unable to walk up the front steps without help. We turned onto the highway. The windshield wipers swished back and forth. Swish, swish, swish. A rhythmic, hypnotic sound. Derick reached over and squeezed my hand. He said, situations, it's going to be a good day. And for 20 minutes, it was, we were listening to a podcast. The kids were surprisingly quiet in the back. Situations, maybe lulled by the motion of the car. It was raining a little harder now, just enough to make the road slick, reflecting the gray sky like a mirror. Situations, I was scrolling through my phone, checking emails, thinking about what to make for dinner. Mundane thoughts, spaghetti or tacos. Situations, there's a strange feeling I get when I think back to those minutes. It's like watching a horror movie where you know the monster is behind the door. Situations, but the character does, we were just driving safe, secure, unaware that a vehicle behind us was losing control on the wet asphalt. Situations, unaware that our lives were measuring out in seconds. Then it happened. It wasn't like in the movies where you see it coming in slow motion. It was instant. Situations of violent, earth-shattering slam. God, the sound was louder than anything I have ever heard. It was the sound of glass exploding and steel buckling all at once. It felt like a giant hand had reached down from the sky and slapped our car off the face of the earth. Our car spun. Once, twice. Situations, I remember the world blurring, green grass, gray sky, gray asphalt, spinning over and over until I didn't know which way was up. Situations, my head snapped back against the headrest so hard I saw stars. I couldn't breathe. The seatbelt locked against my chest like a steel trap. squeezing the air out of my lungs, and then we stopped. The violent motion ended as abruptly as it began. We were facing the wrong way on the highway. Steam was hissing from the hood. The wipers were still going swish, swish, trying to clear a windshield that was shattered into a million diamonds. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. No crying, no screaming. Situations, no breathing, just the hiss of the engine and the rain hitting the broken glass. Those 3 seconds were the longest of my life. In that silence, situations, my mind went to the darkest place a mother can go. I thought they're gone. The back seat was so quiet, too quiet. I was terrified to turn around. Situations, I was terrified of what I would see. I tried to say Derick's name. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My throat felt like it was filled with sand. I looked over at him. He was slumped forward over the steering wheel, motionless. Blood was trickling down the side of his face. Derick? I whispered. It sounded like it was coming from someone else. Derick? He groaned. He moved his hand. He was alive. Relief washed over me for a split second, but then to a situation, the fear came rushing back as why weren't the boys crying? Start Frederick first. A high-pitched, situation's terrified wail that pierced through the ringing in my ears. Then Samuel joined in. Then Israel. Hearing their screams was the most terrifying sound in the world. Situations, and also the most beautiful, because it meant they were alive. They were hurt, they were scared, but they were alive. My mothering instinct kicked in. Situations, I needed to get to them, I needed to hold them. I tried to twist my body to reach into the back seat, but I couldn't move. The moment I tried to turn my head, a sharp, white, hot pain shot down my spine. It felt like someone had driven a knife into the base of my neck. I gasped. The pain was paralyzing. Situations. I realized then that something was very, very wrong with me. I was trapped in my own body. I was reaching my hand back blindly, fingers grasping at the air, trying to touch a leg, a shoe, anything. Mommy's here. I choked out. Mommy's here. But I wasn't there. I was stuck in the front seat, broken. Situations, listening to my baby scream for me, and I couldn't do a single thing to help them. I don't remember the sirens starting. Suddenly, they were just there. Red and blue lights flashing against the wet pavement, reflecting off the shattered glass like a disco ball from hell. People were swarming the car. Strangers. Someone opened my door, a man in a yellow vest. He looked frantic. Mom, can you hear me? Mom, situations. Do not move your head. Get my kids. Don't worry about me. Get my babies out of the car. But my voice was weak. I felt a plastic collar being snapped around my neck. Stiff, hard, suffocating. It forced my chin up. It felt like a cage. Situations. I saw them pulling the boys out of the back seat. They looked so small against the wreckage. Israel was clutching his chest. Samuel was sobbing, reaching for Derick. Situation. They loaded me onto a backboard. The rain was falling on my face, mixing with the tears. As they lifted me into the ambulance, situations, I saw a car slow down in the other lane. A person in the passenger seat was holding up a phone, filming the wreck. Even in the middle of the worst moment of my life, situations, I saw that phone lens pointing at me, and I remember thinking, please don't let this be on the news. Please, situation, let us just be a normal family for once. The doors slammed shut. The ambulance lurched forward, and that's when the real fear set in. Situations, because as we sped toward the hospital, I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. The doors of the ambulance flew open, and I was hit by a wall of noise. Doctors shouting orders, nurses running, machines beeping. It was a symphony of panic. They wheeled me in fast, ceiling lights flashing by one situations. Like a strobe light, I kept asking for Derick. I kept asking for the boys. Where are they? Are they here? A nurse with kind eyes looked down at me and said, situations, they are in the pediatric wing. They are safe. Let us take care of you first. Safe, that word felt so heavy. Were they really safe? Or were they just alive? Situations. They cut my clothes off. My favorite sweater, the one I had just put on that morning, gone in seconds. Scissors snipping through the fabric. I felt so exposed, so small. I wasn't Jill Duggar, the TV personality. I was just a body on a table, shivering under a thin sheet, waiting for someone to tell me if I would ever walk normally again. They wheeled me into the MRI machine. It was loud, clank, clank, clank. Situations like a hammer hitting a coffin. I had to lie perfectly still inside that tube for 45 minutes. And in that darkness, situations, with nothing but the sound of the magnet spinning around me, I prayed harder than I have ever prayed in my life. I bargained with God. Shins, take anything else, I whispered. Just let me be able to pick up my children again. When the doctor finally came in, he didn't smile. Situations. That's when my stomach dropped. He pulled up the x-rays on a glowing screen. He pointed to a vertebrae in my neck. You see this? He asked. You are incredibly lucky. Lucky, it's a strange word to hear when you are strapped to a bed. Situations, he explained that the impact had caused severe whiplash and a fracture. A few millimeters to the left, and the spinal cord would have been severed. Situations, a few millimeters to the right, and I wouldn't be having this conversation. You're going to need this, he said, holding up a hard gray neck brace. For months. Situations. Maybe longer. He put it on me. It was tight. It pushed my chin up, forcing me to look at the ceiling. It felt like a prison. But it was also my lifeline. Situations. Without it, my neck couldn't support the weight of my own head. Derick came in a few minutes later. He had a bandage on his head and his arm was in a sling. Situations. We didn't say a word. We just looked at each other and cried. Two survivors in a sterile room, realizing that the life we knew that morning was gone. We were broken. Situations. But we were still here. Getting to the boys was the hardest mile I've ever walked, even though it was just down the hall. When I saw them, my heart shattered. Chuyes, Israel had a bruised seatbelt mark across his chest, purple and angry against his pale skin. Samuel was sitting on a hospital bed. Situations, holding a teddy bear so tight his knuckles were white. He wasn't crying anymore. He was just staring at the wall. That 1,000-yard stare on a child. Situations, it haunts you. Frederick was sleeping in a crib they had brought in. He looked so peaceful, but every few seconds he would twitch, like his body remembered the impact even in his sleep. I wanted to run to them, scoop them up, spin them around, but I couldn't. I could barely walk. Situations. I couldn't bend down. I had to sit in a chair and have them come to me. I couldn't even nod my head eyes or no to comfort them. Situations. I had to learn to hug them with my words because my body was failing me. That night in the hospital, listening to the monitors beep, bruises would fade, the cuts would heal, but the fear in their eyes, that was going to take much, much longer to fix. Then came the question, situations, the one that would define the next year of our lives. Derick looked at me, phone in his hand. It was buzzing with notifications. Fans asking about a new recipe. Situations. Press asking for comments on some family drama back in Arkansas. Do we tell them? He asked. I looked at my phone. I imagined the headlines. I imagined the paparazzi camping out at the hospital. I imagined people dissecting the crash. Situations, blaming Derick, blaming the car, blaming me. I looked at my boys finally asleep. They needed peace. They didn't need cameras. So they didn't need strangers praying for them on Facebook while speculating about our insurance. No, I said, we tell no one. It wasn't about lying situations. It was about protection. We needed a cocoon. We needed to heal without an audience. So we made a pact right there in room 304. We would disappear. We would post old photos. We would be vague. We would let the world think we were fine so that we could actually get fine. Recovery isn't a montage. In movies, you see a few clips of someone struggling, then poof, they are better. In real life, it's hours of boring, excruciating work. My neck brace became my second skin. I hated it. It rubbed my chin raw. It made sleeping impossible. I had to learn how to sleep sitting up, propped by 5 pillows. Situations just to keep the pressure off my spine. Physical therapy was torture. The smallest movements, turning my head an inch to the left, lifting my arm a few degrees, felt like climbing a mountain. I remember one morning trying to lift a gallon of milk, just milk. My arm shook, my neck seized up, situations, and I dropped it. The jug exploded on the floor. I just stood there in the puddle of white milk and cried, not because of the mess but because I felt useless. I was a mother who couldn't lift milk for her children. I felt broken. And the worst part was I had to clean it up myself, slowly, painfully, situations, while pretending to the world that I was busy baking cookies. The hardest part of keeping a secret is that the world doesn't stop watching just because you want it to. Situations. There were moments, heart-stopping moments where we almost got caught. I remember once we had to go to the pharmacy. I wore a huge scarf wrapped 3 times around my neck to hide the brace. It was 80 degrees outside. I looked ridiculous. We were in the drive-through line. Situations, and the woman at the window leaned out. She squinted at me. Aren't you that girl from TV? She asked. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze. If she saw the plastic collar under the scarf, it would be on Twitter in 5 minutes. No, I lied. Situations. I get that a lot though. I grabbed the prescription and we drove off. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. We lived in constant fear of a slipped scarf, a rogue photo, a neighbor with a cell phone. We became recluses in our own town. Every trip outside felt like a covert military operation. Scan the perimeter, check the angles, hide the brace. But the physical pain was manageable compared to the noise in my head. PTSD is a thief. It steals your peace. It steals your sleep. For months, I couldn't get back in a car without panic attacks. The sound of tires on gravel, crunch, 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 would send me right back to that highway. If Derick braked too hard, I would gasp. My body remembered the impact even when my mind tried to forget. I had nightmares, vivid, terrifying loops of the crash. In the dreams, the car didn't stop spinning. In the dreams, the silence in the backseat lasted forever. Situations. I would wake up sweating, gasping for air, clutching my neck. I would check on the boys 5, 6 times a night. I had to see their chests rising and falling. Situations. I had to touch their warm skin just to prove myself that they were still here. I was drowning in anxiety, but to the outside world. Similar situations. I was just taking a break from social media. I wasn't taking a break. Situations. I was hiding from my own mind. We talk a lot about my injuries because the neck brace was so visible. But Derick, he carried a different kind of weight. Situations. He was driving, even though it wasn't his fault, even though the police report cleared him 100%, he carried the guilt. Situations. The what ifs. What if I had changed lanes sooner? What if we had left 5 minutes later? He never complained about his own pain. Shoo-ins. Even though I know his back was killing him. He became my nurse. He washed my hair when I couldn't lift my arms. He helped me dress. Situations. He drove the boys to school while fighting his own flashbacks behind the wheel. I watched him age 10 years in 10 months. The stress lines on his face got deeper. Situations. He was holding up the sky for our family, terrified that if he let go, we would all be crushed. We didn't just survive the crash. Situations. We survived the pressure cooker that came after it. The turning point came on our anniversary. We were looking through old photos on my phone. Situations. We scrolled past the fake posts, the ones we staged to look happy, and then we hit the real ones, the ones only we had seen, the selfies in the hospital bed. The bruised faces, the fear in our eyes. I looked at Derick and said, situations, I don't recognize those people. We realized we had spent a whole year trying to erase the most significant thing that had ever happened to us. We were treating our survival like a shameful secret. Why? Because we were afraid of judgment, because we didn't want petty. I realized that by hiding the crash situations, I was hiding the miracle. We walked away. We were breathing. My children were playing in the next room. That wasn't something to hide. Situations, that was something to shout about. I was done with the scarves. I was done with the lying. I looked at him and said, I think I'm ready to tell them, and that is why we are here today. The day we decided to post about it, my hands were shaking just like they were in the ambulance. We had drafted the caption for days. Situations. How do you summarize a year of pain in a few paragraphs? How do you explain the silence without sounding like you were deceiving people? I selected the photo. Situations. It wasn't a pretty one. It was me in the hospital bed, bruised, with that gray plastic collar around my neck. It was raw. It was ugly. It was real. Derick sat beside me on the couch. The house was quiet. The boys were asleep. Are you sure? He asked. I looked at the screen. Situations. My finger hovered over the share button. I'm sure, I whispered. I pressed it, and then I put my phone face down on the table. I couldn't look. I was terrified of the comments. I was terrified people would say we were doing it for attention. I was terrified they would blame us. But mostly, I felt lighter. Situations. The secret was out. The weight I had been carrying on my injured neck for 365 days was finally gone. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in a year, my chest didn't feel tight. When I finally picked up my phone an hour later, I was overwhelmed. It wasn't hate. It wasn't judgment. It was a tidal wave of love, thousands of comments. People sharing their own stories of survival. People telling me about their own accidents, their own hidden scars. I survived a crash too, Jill. My family went through this. Thank you for showing the reality. I sat there and cried. Not happy tears, not sad tears, just relief. I realized that by hiding our pain, we had isolated ourselves. But by sharing it, situations, we connected with thousands of people who understood exactly what it felt like to look death in the face and blink. The community didn't reject our brokenness, they embraced it. And in that moment, I realized that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a bridge. It's the only way we truly find each other in the dark. People ask me, "Are you fully recovered now?" The honest answer is no. And maybe I never will be. Situations. My neck still aches when it rains. I still get a flash of panic when I hear tires screech. I still have days where the trauma feels fresh, like it happened yesterday. Situations, but that's okay. That pain is a reminder. It's a reminder that I have a body that fought to heal. It's a reminder that my children are safe in their beds. Situations, we have a new normal now. We drive a little slower, we hold hands a little tighter. Situations, we don't take tomorrow for granted because we know how easily tomorrow can be taken away. The scars, both the ones on my skin and the ones in my mind, are maps of where we've been. They aren't signs of damage anymore, they are proof of life. We are different people than we were before that Tuesday morning. We are stronger, we are quieter, we are more grateful. Situations. Looking back at the photos of the car, the mangled steel, the shattered glass, the police officer told us we shouldn't have walked away from that. He used the word miracle. I used to think miracles were big, flashy things, parting seas, burning bushes. But now I know that miracles are quiet situations. A miracle is hearing your child cry when you thought they were gone. A miracle is waking up in a hospital bed and seeing your husband's face. Situations. A miracle is the boring, mundane Tuesday morning coffee that you get to drink because you are still here to drink it. I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. The messy house, the spilled milk, the late appointments, none of it matters. What matters is the breath in my lungs. What matters is the weight of my son in my arms. Situations. The crash took a lot from us. It took our peace, our health, our sense of safety, but it gave us something back too. It gave us perspective. It gave us the gift of seeing every single sunrise as a bonus round. So if you are listening to this, if you are carrying a secret burden or a hidden pain, situations, know that you don't have to carry it alone. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. Situations, you can be broken and still be whole. You can be scared and still be brave. We survived the crash. We survived the silence. And now we are living in the light. My name is Jill Duggar Dillard. I am a survivor. I am a mother. And most importantly, I am still here. Thank you for listening to my truth. Drive safe and hold your loved ones close. And never, ever forget how precious this fragile, beautiful life really is.